Hey everyone, welcome back to the Comic-Con podcast. This is episode 26. It's me, Zack AKA the Manimal, and like always, I'm here with Justin AKA Nemesis Prime. What's up, bro?
What's going on, Zach? Thursday, July 1st, 2021. We are recording this, of course. I've had an absolute shit day. I'm not going to get into my work thing, but we got a really good episode today. But I at least want to tell you about my one issue, and I'm just like absolutely just sweating over here because I'm dealing with a car issue. So I dropped off my car today at the dealership. Had about a 1 month delay before I could drop it off. It was at like 8 o'clock this morning. Call me up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The guy goes, 3 guys drove your car, but they didn't hear any of the problems that you're talking about. I'm like, really? So I'm making up these issues? Like, all of a sudden, like, the issues were there before I dropped off the car, and then all of a sudden I dropped off the car, and the noise that's been plaguing me for the past 2 months has miraculously disappeared because it's in your hands. I'm just like, God damn it. Like, I know they don't want to do it because I know it's an expensive and an intensive job. They just don't, the dealership just doesn't want to deal with it. So
dude,
there's
nothing that's like more frustrating, I feel like, than mechanics as well, because it's something that I feel like I have zero knowledge to. So they could tell me, I mean, literally they could be like, oh, well, your flux capacitor is ruined and we're going to have to replace that. It'll be $4,000. I'm like, oh shit, the flux capacitor? Like, oh God, fix it, please now, you know, I can do whatever. So anyway, we got a very special guest today. We've got my good friend, our good friend of the channel, Jack AKA Mr. Bolo from WhatNot Comics. What's up, Jack?
Hey, what's up, fellas? Man, I'm excited to be here. This was cool. Very impromptu, but man, I'm pumped.
Yeah. So I was talking to Jack the other night, obviously about WhatNot Comics, which everyone I'm sure knows about, is hearing about right now, and we're going to get into the details on that here, into the weeds with Jack on that. But I was like, you know what? It'd be a good opportunity to have you come on this week and kind of spit it out to the Comic-Con podcast crew and kind of tell us everything about it. So we're really glad Jack was able to have some free time because he's super busy right now with everything that's going on. But yeah, man. So I thought like maybe the first thing we could do is you kind of just tell us how you got started with WhatNot. Because when I first met you, you know, obviously you've been around the YouTube, the Instagram game for a while. I knew you through that. And then you and I interacted on, it was Simple Man Comics on Brian's channel, right?
Yep.
You, me, TiVo, and Brian all did a little chat one time. But so you've been in the game for a while, but then you've kind of like pivoted and moved on. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so like I came up doing content really like in the beginning with no clear goal in mind. I was a member of CBSI early on, and I would write for comicbookinvest.com, and then I ended up managing the social media and then being the content director. And then, you know, Brian and I decided that we wanted to kind of be a little bit more independent, and we went kind of all in with Simpleman's. And that was great. And like, I'd never set out to be a YouTuber, but that kind of like became a thing for a while. And then like everything kind of happened organically. Brian decided like we were kind of moving at a pace that like wasn't really working per se with his life, and he wanted to slow it down. And I think our goals weren't necessarily in line, because at that point I had started really speaking into fruition that like I wanted to work in comic books full time, in some way, shape, or form. But I didn't necessarily know that like developing a YouTube channel was going to be that avenue. I love doing it, but like the process of some of that stuff can kind of get to me. Instead, what I thought my best asset, I feel like, is the way that I view the market, which is how I'm able to communicate to whether it's a podcast or in a YouTube video. I felt like I could do that for companies. So in working in YouTube, you know, you end up doing interviews and you're working with publishers and creators. And I was blessed enough to make a lot of contacts, and it led to some opportunities. So afterwards, I started writing for 137pm.com, which is a VaynerMedia, Gary Vaynerchuk company. And it's from the first comics writer. And when I started to see some success with that, it really struck out to me that I wanted to push outside of the typical comic stream, that I wanted to start bringing comics to like a new community. So I ended up getting an opportunity with Beckett to do the CBCS live podcast. So it's like one thing kind of like led to another. And Beckett, it really, you know, they were synonymous in sports. and they buying CBCS. They were hands off at first, and they wanted to get more involved. And then all of that led to working with Skybound Entertainment and working on some streaming projects with Skybound, which led me to meeting WhatNot and the folks at WhatNot. And it was kind of instantly like right when they started the comic stream, and they were looking for someone to help them navigate the space. And I got the opportunity early on to kind of come in and meet those folks and kind of see if there was like a, if we could jive, if there was like a natural fit there. And I think that I was hungry in the right place at the right time, and had been able to get myself into that position where I am now where I'm at today, where really kind of pushing the WhatNot Comics kind of brand into the community, and really able to the thing that I love the most about it is create opportunities for so many awesome people in the community.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. You're kind of speaking to the choir here. Justin and I also, both of our stories a little bit dabbled in the YouTube thing, and it wasn't really for us necessarily either. Not that it's not for us, but I mean, the content game is it's rough, dude. It beats you down. And like, I get it with Brian too, like the day to day, and you have your family and you have your day job, and it's like the juggling all that. And then sometimes you got to do the content. It can be a little much, I know Justin felt the same way too, right? Back with 3 Men and as much as you were doing over there as well.
Yeah, between 3 Men and Lords, and it definitely is a lot of, it takes a big toll on you, but you want to change up your thing and you want to move and grow. And I feel like this was our next thing. So, Jack, as far as like WhatNot, for history of it, it launched in 2019, and it was more of like cards, right? It was more like the Yu-Gi-Oh and baseball cards before this whole comics thing started. Right.
Originally, Funko was actually the like OG of the platform. It was originally the founders were Funko collectors, and they were frustrated with some of the limitations and the issues that they felt like they were having with platforms like eBay. With things like fakes and damages, the way that buyer and seller interactions ended up, ultimately going in. If you've done enough sales on eBay, you kind of understand that. And they just wanted to create a place to be able to sell Funkos with trusted sellers and it wasn't even live video the way that it is now. It was really just a marketplace where people would list their Funko, similar to what you see on Instagram, like an Instagram page. But you knew that there was trusted sellers, and that they saw so much success with that early on. It spawned into other categories. It's added in the live feature, video feature. And now within the last couple months is broken off. Is broken off.
We're live, folks. We're live.
Has broken off into comics, and it's really just another step in the process. They're not only going to be in every single collectibles aspect, in every single collectible category. They're also going to start to get beyond collectibles. We just announced today vintage clothing. So cool. Yeah, it's going to be an ever expanding thing. But what I really love about it is the fact that the company understood that they had a need to really approach each of these different markets with kind of like a direct attention. So they bring in somebody like me who's a member of the community and can help navigate the space. So you're not just guessing. A lot of companies, when they come in and they may want to get in, say, the sneaker business, or they want to get in the comics business, or they want to get in the music business, but they don't know that business. So they start throwing a bunch of money at problems, and it doesn't really ultimately achieve what they're trying to do. So I can appreciate what they have done trying to make smart strategic moves in the comic space.
So would you say you are the chairman of comics for WhatNot Comics? For the WhatNot app? Is that kind of your role? You're the comics guru, right?
I think that would probably be an overstatement, but I would take it.
No, that's it. That's your title from now on. We're contact him as chairman. Yeah, you're the chairman of comics.
So my man Chancellor Poole, he actually heads up the division. But like that's one thing that's like really great about working with Chancellor is he was the one who really early on was able to identify that like, hey, I need help in understanding and navigating the space, because he's not naturally a comics guy. He's a tech background guy, startup guy. And we've been able to kind of work together to really, I feel proud about in the short time that we've been at this, we've been able to really make some headway in the community.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're seeing a lot of talk this week. I feel like this week, last week, obviously you're seeing all the, a lot of the OGs, myself, Justin included, everyone posting like, hey, we're, WhatNot accounts, everyone going up. And you know how it is in any kind of thing. There's the shiny new toy, but there is a lot of awesomeness with this app. Like, I know Justin barely has gotten off of it in the past 2 weeks. He's addicted to it.
Yeah, I got to say, for anybody out there who's listening to us, absolutely. I found out about the app, I guess, last Tuesday or Wednesday. I downloaded it, and then talking to JB Discovery Bay last week on the Shakers and Lords of Longbox, before the show, after the show, talking with Jack after the show about it. I signed up for the seller account as well last Tuesday or Wednesday. And throughout this past week that I've been constantly just in and out of shows, doesn't have to be comics, it could be sports cards, and I'm watching sports cards go for good money. Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon cards. It's just a very addictive platform because there's just things that you can do where you don't really have to be watching it. You can really just put it there on your phone and be doing something in the background and being like, "Ooh, an item comes up, I want to bid on it." And I've been telling Zach, I feel like I told Zach about this and a couple other people. I feel like when you're bidding against somebody, right? If it's a back and forth battle and it's just like $1 here, $1 there, I feel like it's whose dick is bigger at the end of the day. Like, am I going to lose this book over $1? And then it ends up going for really good money. So it's fun for the seller. And, I love it. I've bought a few items off of it. My first item actually just came in today. It was 2 items. I saw the label. So as a seller, when I become a seller or when I start selling, I'll see how it prints out, how the orders are done. I really am enjoying this app through and through. I know there hasn't really, and not anybody's complaining about issues. Have you heard, any feedback as far as some glitches, Jack? Just so
we've had a couple of things where things that come up, there was an issue with adding in books live. But this is what's great about a company like WhatNot and the way they approach things. They're so dynamic that we're able to take that feedback in real time and get those things addressed. So I think with anything especially this early in the process, 18 months in, things are going to come up from time to time.
Of course. Yeah.
But the beauty of it is the core concept is built upon the actual needs of the community. So it already takes into account a lot of the potential issues. And then they're constantly looking to try to address those issues. And then the people that I've worked with there and that the way they've approached any sort of issues has really been kind of a in the best interest of everyone sort of situation, rather than trying to say police things, which is what a lot of people feel like ends up happening on eBay. And it becomes difficult, especially for the seller, and certainly, with all the buyer protections. So the key is, trying to find that right balance between the buyer and seller. And I think the nature of WhatNot, where it's a closed community for sellers, where you can't just get on there and sell, and there's a vetting process. And by having that, you're trying to, and it's never going to be perfect, right? You're always going to have situations, but by having that process in place, it's easier to address problems, because you're only going to have so many sellers within a community versus eBay, where trying to manage the number of sellers is impossible. So they're able to manage the number of sellers on the platform. And then if there's an issue, they're able to address it, because you want general standards from shipping. The way that the system is structured is for speed. So, the seller's able to sell items quickly. They're able to get paid quickly. They're expected to ship quickly. So the customer is going to get their book quick from at the time that they make their purchase, which is a vastly different experience than what you're getting on a lot of other platforms. And that's not even to knock, say, the Instagram live sales. That's a nature of the beast. I think we've all been a part of those. And, the follow-up afterwards of having to try to, DM people and chase down money, and then make sure that you've got the right book with the right name and the right address. taking that whole back end away from you allows for anybody who's looking to really make this this hobby maybe pay for itself or more, maybe even make it a job. It allows for scalability like I've never seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I want to cut you off real quick. I want to ask you a question, but I want to just say something. And like you said, with the Instagram lives, the one thing that I'm a big believer with this app compared to Instagram Live is the fact that you can be on the app, and at least then you can hit the, let's just say on your iPhone or Galaxy, you can keep the app open in the background and it's still playing. But if you want to do something else, like check an email or check eBay real fast on a book and what it's selling, you can do that. With Instagram Live, you can't. Like, you literally, as soon as you remove it from your screen, that's it. You have to then go to eBay, then you have to like put it back up, or you have to exit the live stream and come back in, and it doesn't catch up to itself. So that's kind of like, it's definitely a positive. My question to you, for anybody who doesn't have it, what are the platforms that it's currently on, and what do you see this growing, and what is the next step for what platforms it's going to be on?
Yeah, I think that currently it's on, it's a mobile app. So it's operating on your phone. There is a component for your PC, but it's not, you're not streaming from your PC, but that's where you're doing a lot of your back office stuff. But again, we're still in the first version. There's going to be a lot of updates and changes. I can't speak to a lot of the specifics, but there's definitely going to be some updates where you're going to be able to implement some of the same systems that you're using to stream across all platforms. And that's the most exciting thing, is of all the like waves that have been made in the community, and the way that this has made buying and selling easy, scalable, fun, in both. And again, it's important buying and selling, because like you mentioned, you had a buying experience, and I found the same thing. I think the reason why I was excited to get involved with it is, as soon as I really started doing the research on it, I could see the vision of what was happening. I watched people who weren't traditional comic buyers and have fun and enjoy themselves and make purchases for the first time. And when you think about a lot of like some of the toxic stuff that can go on in other places, I think that's the kind of energy that is going to help the comic community. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, I want to be a part of that. And I think people they may not understand it at first, and when they see it and once they get it, people are getting hooked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's very fast here.
Yeah.
So,
it's so fun.
So I want to talk about, Justin kind of brought this up a little bit earlier, but I'd like to break it down obviously into pluses and maybe minuses or whatever on both the seller side and the buyer side. So I'm going to start with the sellers. Justin's going to do the buyers. So as a seller, what I've noticed on WhatNot, and obviously, so some of the issues with the other avenues, let's just use Instagram Live, like you said, YouTube auctions, and eBay. Well, with Instagram and YouTube, obviously, the biggest pain in the ass, it always seems like, is getting the person's address and getting the person's email and contact information and making sure they pay, right? So now, correct me if I'm wrong, what it seems like on WhatNot is, as soon as Justin makes a purchase, he says $45 on this book, he wins the auction, boom, immediately it takes his money, sends the shipping address to me as the seller, correct?
Correct, yeah. I mean, everything's immediate. It takes all the work away from you. The real only work that you have to do within the stream process is to sell your books and then ship your books. All of that tracking of the sales of who got what, bundling it together, and then the actual process of purchasing the labels. The WhatNot is going to collect the shipping from the buyer, and then they are going to purchase the label. So all you have to do then is print the label. And it's gonna take all of those steps away, which again, my biggest thing is it's going to allow you to sell more. It's going to allow you to move faster, and be able to scale whatever your operation is. And that's even if you're a collector who's looking to do this on the side. I think for my side hustle people, or people who are just looking to move their extras, it's even more important, because if it's not something you have the time to dedicate to,
right,
being able to move quickly, do a sale in one day and move X number of books within an hour. It's shocking. I mean, you can sell 30 books, 40 books in an hour with ease, really.
Yeah. I mean, like with eBay, you'd have to take the pictures, upload, put the price in, auction, set the shipping, do all that. and it's time consuming and very monotonous. So yeah, you know what I really like, obviously you kind of mentioned it too, but like for the listeners who maybe aren't experienced this, like, so if Justin and I are in an auction and Jack's doing the auction and I'm buying random throughout the auction, 5, 6, 7 different lots of books, it bundles all those up. And then Jack knows, oh, Zack has 7 bundles and it's Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Aquaman. Justin has Star Wars. Because that's all Justin gets. So it packages all those up as opposed to doing that, YouTube IG, where then I got to write it down. Okay. What did Zack buy? What did someone buy? So that's awesome, man. I mean, that alone. And I also see the potential, or not the potential, but the block for trolls, right? You mean everyone who's done a YouTube auction has those dudes who buy that stuff and then don't end up paying, or, running shit up and then dip out, something like that. So,
yeah, I think that's one of the most frustrating things from the feedback that I get from IG live sellers is,
yeah, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, and then you end up having to rerun that book, and then you're never knowing if you're going to get that same amount.
Correct. Yeah.
That's always a fear. And now, I mean, there can be an issue in WhatNot where somebody can win a book and their payment cannot go through. Of course, but that's going to happen immediate. Yeah. So you can immediately rerun, and that not having that lag between that time should protect your price. We're not seeing like a difference there. And so I think that's the beauty of it is we're able to look at all these platforms and these experiences that the sellers are getting. And with my role being twofold, where I'm the bridge between the comic community and WhatNot.
The chairman of comics.
Chairman, right. Right. So then be in that role and kind of being able to be that bridge, and then also being able to kind of promote and plan some kind of like promotional things and some fun things within the community. I think that allows for things that you're not seeing on other platforms. And we're going to be able to kind of address not just one platform, but all platforms, and create the best community within collectibles and live selling.
So the final thing on sellers here, probably one of the most important things sellers kind of look at, obviously, Instagram and YouTube. A lot of people are doing the friends and family on PayPal, which is a little dicey on the rules there on, legality and whatnot. But let's talk about eBay. Everyone is a seller. You kind of mentioned it earlier. eBay definitely defends the buyer and kind of like screws over the seller, and as well as fees. So what kind of fees are we talking about for the WhatNot sellers? How does that work out?
Yeah, currently WhatNot is at an 8% fee for the sellers. Their PayPal charges a 2.9% fee. That's PayPal's fee, and that's one of those things as a payment processor, like they are in control of that. Of course, there's even talks about rising prices there. So that could be a situation that's dynamic. Is that the payment system of the future? For WhatNot, we're not sure. You don't know. But right now, yeah, the friends and family thing, I think that's another big risk that people take, especially as you start doing big books. Like, that's a big risk that the seller has to take. And I also think that that's sometimes short-sighted because you're worried about a small amount of money versus getting that protection, which I think is invaluable. But at the same point, that's the value of a third-party platform, right? Yeah. So that's another benefit of, say, an eBay or a WhatNot, is that you're protected. You're on a platform where you have another person who's involved in that process. So that's what I really like about WhatNot as a seller, is that you're getting the best of both worlds, where you have the freedom to do your own thing, leverage your own social imprint, and really customize whatever your effort is to what you do. And then on top of it, you can move fast, and you have a company that's supporting you because they're in it with you, as your platform, and they're essentially your partner because you're paying those fees into them.
Of course. Justin, buyer stuff?
So the buyer side, it's definitely very interesting. It's very, I would say, a lot easier to utilize than dealing with Instagram or eBay. Like I said, I made a couple purchases, but my first purchase came in today. So actually on my first purchase I ever made, it was 2 items in the same person's live stream. So the first item was like a $4.50 shipping charge. And then my very next item, even though it was a few books, it was a lot, it only charged me an extra $1 for shipping. So that's something that's very helpful, because if you're buying on eBay, sometimes you got to go back to the seller and be like, hey, can you
Right.
combine shipping? Can you refund me the shipping that's the additional, because it charged me for like 5 different items. With same thing with like Instagram, you're talking to somebody and being like, hey, I PayPal'd X amount of dollars. I want to make sure that I get, can you give me a combined shipping thing? With WhatNot, it's all done there for you. So the more items you're buying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, it's only charging you an extra $1 per book, as long, like a raw book, correct?
Correct. Yeah. You're getting $1 per item added at that point. So what that's allowing for is, there's a lot of times people's immediate reaction. You get this a lot on the seller side, where people see the pricing of, say, run books or, the lower end books, and they're surprised at why they're drawing what would be deemed as over fair market value when you use eBay as a comp. But a lot of that is because of that value that's built in to the shipping side. So if you're a buyer, you're able to buy multiple items. You're able to get the cost individually per item down. And because of that, you're incentivized. When you look at eBay, people aren't listing the lower end items. And when they do, there's a high shipping cost. And then that shipping cost, you got to factor that in. So and then can you buy a bunch of items from one person? Where, WhatNot stream, you can buy a bunch of items from one person in a very short period of time. You can bundle that together and save shipping. So for a buyer, you're getting kind of that same speed and ease that the seller gets to experience, and the same protections that seller gets to experience. And that's another benefit of the whole vetting process, where, yeah, we're getting sellers on and who are going to represent the community, but they're also going to be beneficial to the buyers, who are able to then trust these sellers and build relationships with these sellers through these streams, where you're getting to see these people, know these people, and you're not just buying a listing on eBay.
And the platform itself is already so far sophisticated, like eBay, where I can go right to my profile. I can see what I've ordered. I can see if it was shipped. I can look at the tracking. Like, I know where it is the whole time. Unlike if I bought from Instagram, someone's like, yeah, they're going to give me the tracking number. Then I got to go into, the postal service or FedEx or UPS, and I got to put in the information, which those are long numbers and letters. It's easy. Just click on it, and I know exactly where the book is. As far as buying, same thing, like you said. If somebody's currently selling, they put up buy it now. So it's like, hey, I like that item. I think it's a great price. Boom. I just buy it now. And then until other books come up in the auction, if I want to buy the book, I'll buy additional books. And it's great that everything is just combined into one. I think the platform, again, is very great. And I like how if you are a person like me who's going to be buying, you have your followers, which is always nice. So you could see who's following you. You have people who you want to follow, so you can already be prepared for when their streams are going to come on. One thing we didn't really talk about for sellers, and I'll just kind of put this in, people do preview videos, which is really awesome. So of like, hey, here's what I'm going to be, here's like just kind of a preview of what I'm selling, so people can prepare themselves to know. Like, so, even though some people don't list everything on their auctions, I still go into everybody's auction and like go down the list of items at what's for sale, because somebody may put something, then I'm like, oh, I definitely want to try this and probably get it at a great price. And it may not even be a book I'm really looking for, but hey, if I can get it at a good price and there's only a few people bidding, it's what is it? Like, you figure maybe if there's 5 people bidding on this site compared to how many people are bidding on an item on eBay, it's night and day.
Right.
Yeah, I like how you can get in there and it shows like what's scheduled. So it'll be like, so-and-so scheduled for Thursday at 5 p.m. and it may have like a little promo video for them as well. So it is fun, man. It's very addicting and it is very fun. It's a fun app, man. I think it's going to be really, really great.
Yeah, and I think that if you want an idea for any comic fan out there of like what we're capable of within the space, just look at what's going on in the sports area. Like Tyreek Hill just did a break from the Kansas City Chiefs over the weekend. Austin Dillon, the former Daytona 500 winner, did a card break over the weekend. So like we've got a who's who in sports involved in the platform, and it's just going to take time. I think that over time you're going to start to see more and more prominent names in the comic book community involved in comics. We've got publishers already involved, Skybound Entertainment. You can buy books directly from them in their Comics Vault live shows. The next one is on July 23rd. That'll be another big one. So yeah, great opportunities like that. Scout will be debuting soon.
Oh,
Sweet,
nice.
man.
So who are some of the ambassadors that you have for WhatNot? Obviously, again, you're the chairman, so there's got to be some people that are, helping you out. So who in the community, and I'm sure people listening will maybe know these names.
Yeah. So what we've got Ambassador Samantha from Skeleton Key Comics and her husband Tony. They are running the WhatNot Comics Collective weekly auctions, which is the auction that you will see from the verified WhatNot Comics account every week. And that is, really just hot books, slabs, some kind of like books that are in like cool categories that maybe aren't being sold yet as much on the platform. Like we sold a Golden Age book last week. Really trying to support the community by like showing what's possible and getting some cool books out there into the market. And I think over time too, that stream will really develop, and you'll get to see kind of like some best practices, that what works, what doesn't. And I think it'll be great for both sellers and buyers to use as kind of like a tool to really see the community. And then also Samantha, because she was so early on the platform setting up these sales, she's been great with these tutorial videos and like really walking people through the basics of what it's like to set up a sale. I think it's intimidating for a lot of people when they first see the platform, especially if you're not accustomed to live selling. Like if you're not an Instagram live person and you've strictly been involved in eBay and you're not making content on YouTube, that can be daunting, right? I get that.
Yeah.
So I think what Samantha's job and has really been is, and what she's done a great job with, is showing people the ease of the system and making people feel comfortable. And by seeing somebody who similar to myself, where I'm able to do things behind the scenes and kind of be a trusted member of the community who can have these conversations with other members of the community. Samantha can do that kind of like in front of the camera, kind of and really be forward facing and do a lot to help really kind of like make WhatNot as visible as we feel like we're becoming, and only will get that spotlight will get brighter and brighter.
It's awesome, man.
Cool.
So any final questions, Justin, about WhatNot?
The only thing I want to maybe ask, and like you said, Samantha helps out with some of the new people out there, so it may be intimidating. So if you are a new seller, you can ask people from WhatNot to kind of help you on your first live show, kind of help set up and kind of run you through, like, I guess, the ringer, you'd say.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we want to kind of do, and everybody's a little different, right? So like when you talk to people, I try to talk to, when I'm onboarding somebody, I'm trying to talk to them about their goals, right? What are they trying to accomplish? Because everybody's a little different. And then once I can figure out what you're trying to accomplish, I can know how to best help you. So, and that's something that I'm trying to do. It becomes difficult more and more as the platform grows and we get more and more sellers on to try to be as accessible as you want to be. But I think that's something that being able to do that and really help people get their first stream up. And then it's something I always tell people, like, if you're going to do something big, like, let me know. Let me know if if there's going to be something big and that needs to be shined light on social and things like that. And, those are things that can be done, and being able to have that communication between us, I think is excellent. Because like if you're trying to get in contact with somebody on a platform like eBay, you're sitting there in a queue trying to talk to a computer versus being able to talk to somebody that or if you don't know me, if you haven't had an interaction with me, I always tell people, like, my DMs are open. You can reach out. I can't always promise how fast I'll get back, but I will always get back to you.
So where can everyone find WhatNot? Where can they find the app? The app store? Is there an online like a website? What can we do there?
Yeah, there's a whatnot.com. You can go there and you can, it's got the links to download in the App Store. on all mobile devices. And of course, follow the at WhatNot Comics Instagram account, which will kind of like direct you to what's going on specifically within the comic space. WhatNot has accounts for the main account, the at WhatNot account, as well as WhatNot Sports and several of the other categories. So if you're into those things, it's great to check out and see what's going on, because there's constantly big promotional events going on in every segment of the app. So try to stay on board with that. And then the other thing is, like, once you download the app, follow the streams that you want to follow the people you want to follow. So you can get those push notifications and let you know when things are going live and when people are going live, so you don't miss a show, which is something I think is a big benefit over a lot of the other platforms.
Awesome, cool, man. Well, sweet, dude. Like you said, everyone's been talking about WhatNot lately, and glad you could come on and kind of break it down for everyone. So if you guys are listening, check that out. You can follow Jack on AKA Mr. Bolo on Instagram, also WhatNot Comics, and then there's WhatNot on Instagram, correct? The two different,
yep.
Yeah. So the two different Instagram accounts there. So definitely follow those as well. Anything else, Justin?
No, it was an absolute great interview, Jack. Thank you so much for coming on and kind of going over. I know a couple of YouTube channels have kind of talked about this and touched on it, but I feel like it's really, over the past week and a half, it's really been immersive in the comic book community. And whether it's people sharing their profiles saying, hey, follow me, or the memes that are like, this is what it looks like right now on the WhatNot app in the comic book community. I've seen a couple of those memes that have been pretty funny. So I think it's perfect. It's an absolute great app. I think the future is endless. The people that are behind it are big people that are in the not so much just the comic book community, but big people in the corporation world. So I think we have a lot to see from this as it grows over, the next 6 to 8 months and further.
Yeah, right on.
Okay, so let's get into some news. So we don't have a lot of news today, but we got a few little tidbits, and Jack's going to stick by and kind of give us his opinion as well on some of the stuff coming up. So kind of one of the first ones, I don't know if people are happy about this kind of stuff. I never really am, to be honest, but we're going to go ahead and spoil it as well here, because since it's already out there. But there's been some official images of the Spider-Man No Way Home costume for Peter Parker, Spider-Man on there, as well as the Lego sets, kind of revealing some villains and stuff like that. So obviously the Lego set came out, and it's showing Peter Parker's new Iron Spider suit. Kind of looks a little bit like that. It's got the gold on the spider logo on the wrist and the knees area, giving you a pretty good idea of what his suit might look like in this new upcoming movie, as well as I don't know if we really want to call it a villain, but they've got a buildable giant bug monster with gripping claws. So it's like an arachnid robot that's attacking Wong in this. So what do you guys think about these Lego reveals that we sometimes get?
I think it's early. And I think that's sometimes the issues is with that, is especially for speculators, because isn't it, you have Wong, you have MJ who's in there, and Doctor Strange, I think, was also another character that's part of that set. So that leads everybody to believe that Doctor Strange and Spider-Man are going to be in the movie together. At what point in the MCU timeline does it, put together? And then people again speculating of, hey, when's the first time that, obviously we've already seen this in Avengers Infinity War when Spider-Man and Doctor Strange kind of meet, but it's like, when was the first time that they met and were fighting together? So then people go out and find that book. That's like the next thing.
Yeah. I think sometimes it can be dangerous if you're like a speculator to speculate on these toy reveals, because they've proven to be about 50-50 with whether or not they've actually panned out in the film. I think back to like Guardians of the Galaxy when they had Marvel Legends Darkhawk figure, and then Darkhawk wasn't in the film. I think a lot of times that we read a lot into this, and certainly there's been accounted history like Hulkbuster where we've seen like Funko reveals and things like that. They've come to fruition. But I definitely think if you're going into it, you should go into it wide-eyed and know that that's a risky investment.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that Spider-Man again, but remember Far From Home when it came out, and they had like all the Hydra Man, and they had the different characters that Mysterio had, and everyone was like, "Oh man, Hydro Man, Molten Man, they're all coming out." And those books were hot, and then dove. It's just like
I think that might be like the biggest brick in investing in the probably the last 5 years or so would be those villains from that film. I think a lot of people
crazy,
a lot of people bought those on the high, and are sitting on those right now at a fraction.
Yep. I totally agree.
It's definitely fun to laugh at the misfortunes of the comic book speculating sometimes, because everyone's had them. Each one of us have spec'd and been like, crap.
That's also the funny thing about comics, though. Like everything comes back around, right? So now you look at some of those characters, and they may actually, because they didn't appear, they may appear in the future. And I think about things like Red Goblin. That's one that I always talk about. Like that's the character where I bought 100 copies of the book when it came out.
Yeah.
And then that was a good move for about a week, and then it got real bad. But Dylan becomes Venom. Suddenly, Red Goblin starts to look like it may have some legs.
Yeah.
So suddenly you're like, what short box is that in? And
I'm telling you right now, you want to be on the lookout for something. If you got Dylan being Venom, you might be seeing Normie become the villain, since they're already buddies. You got two friends, two young age guys coming up against each other. And didn't we see during that Red Goblin phase, wasn't Normie, I can't remember, it's been a while since I read that.
Goblin or whatever.
He got infected by something too, right? Didn't he have the symbiote or something? I don't know.
Yeah, right. So he became the younger Red Goblin. At that point. So I really think he's gonna end up being the Carnage to Dylan's Venom.
Yeah, I think so too. Cool. So watch out for those Lego reveals, everyone. So the next one up, man, this is actually, I was really excited when I saw this. It's not a lot of great news here, but it's kind of, we talked about it in what we are currently reading not too long ago, but the Old Guard 2 has got a tentative film date. It's supposed to be start filming next year. So if you haven't seen The Old Guard on Netflix starring Charlize Theron, you got to see it. And if you haven't read the comics by Greg Rucka, you got to check those out. Awesome. I'm a massive Old Guard fan. Had not read the comics, saw the Netflix movie, thought it was a badass idea. Kind of like it was like Highlander idea, except without there can only be one type situation, and just loved it, man. Went back and read all those comics. So super excited to hear finally like a filming for this.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was gonna say, I definitely agree. It'll be interesting. It seemed to only have like a little blip on the secondary market. I think it's going to be interesting, some of these indie titles that go out with like multi-film runs, because there isn't a history of that. Right. So what's going to happen on the market? That one's a little more of a mystery. I kind of think Old Guard #1 is underrated.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, I was totally gonna second that. I couldn't believe, the movie came out. It was great. It kind of slid through everybody because of COVID. I think it came out last year, so nobody really cared about it. More people were, banking on Umbrella Academy season 2, because everybody knew that season 1 was good. So season 2, everybody was, trying to find those first appearances, and then it was Old Guard came out of nowhere, but nobody really watched it. So give it a chance and give it a read, because Zach and I both are thoroughly enjoyed by it. And they just finished the newest one, or
no? So it's like I think it's 5 issues, and each issue is like 2 characters. It's like a character spotlight. It's like I think it's called Through the Old Guard Through the Ages, I believe. I think they did 2 issues so far, but it's cool, man. So each issue has been broken up with like 2 of the characters, and like Andromaca, I think is her name. Her story. It's cool, man. Check them out. Definitely check them out. So, okay. So also on some TV news, I know this one is right up Justin's alley. I kind of bowed out from these a little while ago. The CW shows. So Batwoman season 3 just announced that they will be casting for Renee Montoya, as well as 2 new characters that haven't really been in any comic history. At least I don't think so. Jada Jet, they describe her as a Black woman in her late 40s to early 50s and CEO of Jet Industries. And in her younger years, she was forced to give up her first child, which has made her exceptionally protective of her next child, her son Marquis, who's described as a sexy playboy who grew up in a life of luxury. So 3 new characters. Obviously, Renee Montoya has a storied history in DC. So you've been watching Batwoman, right, Justin?
Yeah, actually, I just finished season 2 this past week. And anybody who's I'm going to spoil it for you. Lucius Fox finally became Batwing, so that was really cool. The costume's really dope. I think the season kind of was up and down. Kate Kane is kind of back, obviously, with Ruby Rose taking the back seat and doing films. She didn't want to come back after her issues after season 1. She had surgery on her neck. She was doing her own stunts, and she didn't want to get herself hurt. So you got this new character called Ryan Wilder. She was introduced in the last issue of the Batgirl series for Rebirth. She hasn't been Batwoman yet, and she hasn't really reappeared in the comics yet. So I don't know what her future is going to be, but they at least brought in someone new. She's a great character. They still kind of kept it with the whole how she is a lesbian, because that's how Kate Kane was, and that's something that I think is an integral part of the DC CW, because you need those type of characters. Every show has someone there. With Renee Montoya, we've seen her in the Harley Quinn movie. We've seen her obviously in the animated series. Will she become the Question? I don't know.
That's
the other 2 characters. Yeah, that is the question. I don't know. The other 2 characters, we'll see. Jack, do you watch any of the CW stuff?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the CW stuff. I think it tends to be, when I watch it, I don't take it as serious. I think where people get upset about it is they put the same stock into it they do some of the films. You got to understand you're working with a different budget. And so I enjoy some of the fun and campiness of it. Mm-hmm. I will say the switch in Batwoman threw me off a bit. Yeah. So I lapsed a bit. The Batwing stuff definitely has me interested in coming back around. But I lapsed for a bit there. I enjoy Flash. Arrow, I really liked the whole time. And certainly I think every one of those shows was up and down.
I know Zach hasn't kept up on this. And what is your thoughts on Superman and Lois?
Jack or Zach?
My thoughts.
Yeah. I know Zach doesn't. We talked about this on the first episode or second episode, after the first episode of the show happened. Just to discuss it. And I know he hasn't kept up. So
I think that's been the highest quality debut show that I think they've had yet. I think it's been the best. It's I think it's had the most maybe HBO feel on on the CW. My one argument would be, as a comic investor, would be I wish the Jonathan Kent was more like the Jonathan Kent in the comics. I wish that was a harder tie-in, because I love the Jonathan Kent character and think that that's a character with a ton of potential. And I get excited for the idea of, if you're going to go down the road with Jonathan Kent, are you going to get Damian Wayne?
Super Sons, man. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's always been said that the CW could basically use almost any character except Batman. That was the one character that was off limits to them. So I think that using Damian could be a very cool way to get some Batman without using Batman. But I don't know if they're going to go that route with the way they've got the show structured.
Yeah, definitely the quality is such a step ahead of, the Flash and Batwoman. The storyline, it's just an integral part. Even if you're not a big fan of comics, just the family aspect. And we talked about this after the first episode. I like everyone's story that's going on, and even the outside characters like Jonathan Kent is the girl that he talks to, and Henry Irons, or Luther, whatever his name is. There's so many characters that you enjoy, what their storyline is very integral. And obviously you've watched, I'm sure if you watch up to now what happens, and this is the end of season 1, or it's coming back in August. I think that's took a hiatus for a couple months, and then it'll be back in August. So I think it's a great show.
By the success. I think they were a bit surprised by the success early on. But I would say to any of the comic readers listening, if you watch the show and like the show, go back and check out that Convergence Superman story, and then going in after that, going forward into Rebirth. I think that the Lois and Clark miniseries, I think that is some of the best. I'm not a Superman fan. For I've always had trouble with that character, with like the fact that it seems like every story is kind of similar.
Right.
You know,
Relatability is a
yeah.
big issue. Yeah.
I've always found myself more drawn to kind of like the characters with more human qualities, the Punisher, the Batman, those kind of characters. But I found that story humanized Clark Kent. And I say Clark Kent because it really showed that Clark Kent's tied so much more than Superman. It rounded out that character so much. The dynamic between him and Lois, Lois taking maybe a larger role in his life and in the relationship, and then the implementation of having a son and all the things that brings in. I enjoyed that run so much, that era of Superman, that I wasn't surprised that when a show propped up that it was going to have basically that storyline, that was going to be good. It's all about just what they put into it.
I might have to go back and give it another shot. It was just with the CW stuff. I agreed with everything you said. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was. And sometimes I like the campiness, but man, it was just so many shows and I couldn't keep up, man. So it was after Crisis. Yeah. I just kind of gave up, man. So
how awesome
it does seem like Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
Crisis was awesome, man.
Yeah.
Crisis was great. Lois and Clark kind of seems like it's very standalone too, which gives it a more appeal for me to go back and try to watch that again. So then I don't have to, the collector in me doesn't have to read everything and watch every show, if it's going on. So, but cool. So this next one is kind of not so much comics. This is just me kind of geeking out a little bit here because I'm really excited about this. So Amazon has set a 2021 premiere window date for the Wheel of Time book series by Robert Jordan coming out on Amazon Prime. And I'm super, super excited about this. I read a lot of comics, but at the same time, I'm always reading fantasy, sci-fi novels as well. And The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan is one of the all-time best fantasy series. I'm currently rereading it for like the third time right now. And I'm on book 8 of 14. And it's like every book's about 800 pages. It's gnarly. It's so cool. And I cannot wait for the show. Are you guys familiar at all with Wheel of Time?
No.
Vaguely, I've never read it.
Man, okay. Well, I'm not going to delve into it, but it's basically like a fantasy. Obviously, there's magic and like destiny and prophecy going on and stuff, and it's really, really cool. I mean, this show already greenlit a second season before they did a first season announcement date. So check it out. Can't wait for the show to come out. I think it's going to be really cool, especially for all those people who need their Game of Thrones fix. I think it's going to be right up your alley. Probably not as adult and aggressively violent sometimes as Game of Thrones was, but maybe a little bit more fun as well for like you can watch with your family. And if you're into novels, man, read this series. You are doing yourself a disservice by not reading it. So
All right.
check it out. So anyway, we're going to end like we always end with what we're currently reading. And it's always great when we have a guest because sometimes you guys can probably predict what Justin and I are going to pick. Maybe not so much Justin. Probably definitely can usually predict what I'm going to pick. But we'll start with Jack this time. Jack, what are you currently reading? What would you suggest out there, whether it's new, old, for our listeners?
So as far as like reading, my favorite things to read are indie titles. So I am currently like knee deep in some runs that are actively going on. Something's Killing the Children, Once in Future, and Department of Truth are my absolute favorites. Having said that, Nice House on the Lake that just debuted, I thought the debut issue was, I say episode, but that's basically what we might as well prepare for. It's amazing. But what I also love is like, we talked earlier about like missing things with investing. Like sometimes you miss a book when it comes out and then so many people talk about how great it is that you have to jump on board. And that's what Stray Dogs was for me. People kept talking about Stray Dogs. And I missed it. It went past me when it came out, and that's okay. You're not going to get everything. And that is one that I have jumped on reading recently, and I totally get why it was so successful. So if you have not had the chance to read it yet, I absolutely said 5-issue miniseries, totally digestible. It's a great one to check out.
Yeah, so that's one. So this is part of our segment we do every week, and that was probably early on. Justin picked that up. Like you said, you don't get everything, and I have a tendency to miss independent books for sure. So I feel like Justin's like my catch-all net and he knows what I'm gonna like too. So he suggested Stray Dogs. So our listeners had heard it early, like right out the gate. And if
No
they didn't jump
excuse.
on it, no excuse. Yeah, no excuse.
Yep.
And that was by far my favorite recommendation from Justin's what we're currently reading. So that's a good one. Justin?
So I got 2 books. One's actually a novel. So the newest Star Wars book just came out, A Rising Storm. So I'm reading currently that from Cavan Scott. There's a ton of chapters. I couldn't tell you. I'm probably in maybe chapter 8 of it. It's definitely, if you read Light of the Jedi and if you read Into the Dark, I would say this is the easiest of the reads. Light of the Jedi was definitely, oh man, there was so much going on, and I feel like it was very wordy and introduction of all these different Jedi. But now you're seeing a flow. You're knowing the characters, you're knowing the time, you're knowing the area, and they're bringing it back to what's going on currently in the comic book. So what's going on in the Marvel series, what's going on in the IDW series, you know these characters, you know the villains so far. So I'm only, like I said, a few chapters in, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Like I said, it just came out like 2 days ago. But for my book, and this is just right off the bat, this thing is really awesome. It's from Scout Comics, and I didn't realize that they have a horror imprint called Black Caravan. And I'm reading actually a couple comics from Scout. Some of them like Stabbity Bunny and The Electric Black or some. But this one actually just came out. It's called Tales Told in Techno Horror. So, of course, I like to kind of go into what is the book. So Tales in Techno Horror is a biannual horror series that blends all the best in horror subgenres, body shock to grindhouse and more. Each issue contains 5 short stories from the dark minds that brought you prevalence and madness. So I know this is not a visual show, but for these guys who are watching this right now, it's just really cool. So there's, like I said, there's 5 different issues, but things that happen in this. I'm just gonna it's really interesting. It's very like sci-fi B-rated horror, like almost like even like the cover is very like 80s
cool.
like sci-fi horror. I don't really understand that it's only gonna be 4 issues, and it's biannually, so it's like, will I not get the next one until 2023? The storylines are very short because they're only like 5 pages. But it's almost like there's this one storyline that almost looks like Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Like,
like Pinhead right there.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of go over this one. So there's a locksmith. He's kind of a thief, and he breaks into all different locks. And, he's trying to break into this one lock that's like super hard to get into. He cracks the code. He opens the door and he goes, "What the hell is in here?" He walks in. He's like, "I'm not walking in here without a flashlight." He tries to walk out, and then this thing, like you said, kind of like a Pinhead looking character, takes him and says, "Thank you for opening up us to your world." And then there's some other stuff that happens. But man, this series is really cool. Anything that from the Black Caravan from Scout Comics. So Tales Told in Techno Horror is really cool. And I know they did a couple of variants, and the variants are pretty cool. They're like old school VHS tapes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yo, side note, I'm just going on a tangent right here. You posted a VHS graded book today on your Instagram and saying be on the lookout for that being the next new thing too, man. God, that's crazy.
I think that's the next wave.
Oh boy.
It's wild. So I got 2 books. Well, 1 book and then an honorable mention. My honorable mention, I'm not going to go into detail, but I think I've talked about this before. If you aren't reading Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky, you should be. It's awesome. This newest issue was awesome. Bullseye coming back, Elektra being Daredevil, Daredevil operating in jail, all cool shit, and Kingpin thrown in the mix as well. Definitely need to be reading that. So on the theme of Chip Zdarsky, my pick of the week is actually going to be crossover issue 7. So I wasn't a massive fan of issues 1 through 6 crossover. Like I thought it was okay. It was decent. I'll be honest, like in issues 3 and 4, I probably like sped read a little bit and skimmed through it. But then I picked up this issue, and I believe this is the only one that's actually going to be, because I think Donny Cates is coming back next issue, and it's written by Chip Zdarsky in this one. And if you don't know what crossover is, this world, it's basically a regular world, and like the title says, crossing over with superheroes, but you're also getting this kind of breaking of the third wall of creators interacting with their creations and whatnot. And there is some hilarious interactions between Chip Zdarsky, who is currently on the run because he doesn't want to be murdered by some of the characters he's created in the comics, and he's being defended by his alter ego, Chip Zdarsky, which is not his real name, obviously. And I wanted to read you the line in here, but no, I'm not going to. I don't want to ruin it. But I was laughing out loud with what it was saying, and I really enjoyed it. It was a fun issue. It kind of reignited me to keep going with crossover. The first 6 issues were good. 7, I really liked it, even though not a lot happened. But I'm excited to see what it goes. I'm going to keep going with that. So
Cool.
That's my pick.
I agree. I actually agree with you that I thought it was my favorite issue of crossover so far.
Nice. Do you know which line I'm talking about?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have a thought, but
okay. So you got the real Chip Zdarsky talking to the comic book Chip Zdarsky, and he says, "I've never had a plan. You're the guy who plotted story arcs and did obsessive page layouts. I snorted too much coke and shit talked Ryan Stegman on Twitter." And so I just couldn't stop laughing about that, dude. And I'm just thinking, like, so Donnie Cates writes this book. Ryan Stegman's his boy. He's calling him out in here. And I was almost going to create a Twitter account to get on and see if Chip Zdarsky really had shit talked Ryan Stegman.
Oh yeah. They have like a whole back and forth. That's like
nice.
Thing.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's like a real thing. And I think that's what makes this book so cool.
Yeah. That should have me rolling. That was funny.
Nice. I'll have to check it out.
So that's all we got this week. Thanks again, Jack, for coming on. Jack AKA Mr. Bolo. You can find him on Instagram, coming on and talking to us about WhatNot, the new hot thing right now. Make sure you check that out. WhatNot Comics on Instagram, WhatNot on Instagram. Jack is also on Instagram as AKA Mr. Bolo. Am I missing any other places they can find you?
Oh man, I'm a little bit of everywhere. 137pm.com every Friday for this week in comic investing column, and Friday mornings on Beckett Media, anywhere on any Beckett Media stream, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, for the CBCS Live podcast. Soon to be at the end of the month at the National Sports Card Convention on the main stage, talking comics in the world of sports cards. So nice. We're invading their comic conventions, right, or their card conventions.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks again for coming on. Any last words, Justin?
No, episode 26 in the books. We've done this for 6 months now, Zach. It's been a lot of fun. And
that's kind of crazy.
Jack, thank you so much for coming on, especially anybody who's listening out there. Go out and download the WhatNot app, either on your iPhone or your Android. Become a buyer, and then eventually, if you can become a seller, you'll have a lot of fun just buying, because I'm having a great time buying books right now. And even if I don't have the money, I'm just like, if it's a great deal, I'm buying it.
Yeah, you can find both Justin and I on there as sellers as well. So keep an eye out for our upcoming auctions also. Mm-hmm. So that's all we got. Thanks a lot, guys, and we will catch you next week.
Peace out, everyone.